Shabbat Shalom Yisrael on what they call the 24th of October 2020. Yehonathan Dawid with you here, humbly so. I'm joyful in being with you here today to continue on what I'm going through now in this series, and this is a Torah. We're going to be doing there are about 54, 55 Torah portions that I'm sharing with you. This is installment number 5, Chayei Sara. That is the life of Sarah. The life of Sarah is portion number 5. These series are designed to get us to be more aware, to understand the so-called Bible in a deeper level, to get us to know the mind of Yahweh. We know the mind of Yahweh has been revealed to us in the very first word of the Torah, Bereshit. Bereshit tells us the mind of Yahweh. That Yahweh is establishing his house on the foundation of his son, whom he is giving to us as a gift, as a sacrificial gift on a tree with the thorns on his head. And that is revelation of his covenant to bring us back to him. All of that is revealed in the very first word. You cannot get that understanding in the KJV. Can't get it. When you read Yahweh's word, you fall in love with it. You read it in fasting and in spirit and in truth to hear what he has to say, not what you already come as knowing. So bear with me, please. These series are not very popular, and that's because most people do not want the truth. They do not want to hear. This is boring to them. But those who have an ear to hear are the remnant. The few is all I need. Follow weekly on these Torah portions. Number 5, the life of Sarah, goes through Genesis 23, 1 through 25, and 25 to 18. Okay, so here we go. Now Sarah is the only matriarch in the Bible who we're told how long she lived and when she died. This is how important she is. She is so important that when she died, Abraham did not cry over her first. He eulogized her and spoke of her greatness. He did his mourning for his wife in private. It was the 10th and final test of Abraham. She lived to be 127, the Torah says. And why did it break it down in that way? When she was 20, she had the youthful innocence of a 7-year-old. And when she was 100, she had the youthful beauty of a 20-year-old. Sarah, our matriarch, our mother, did not die sick. She died as a beautiful princess as she was, and she died healthy and strong. She gave up her life willingly. Sarah, if you get the whole story of it, Sarah gave up her spirit willfully to Yahweh after she found out that her husband did not in fact sacrifice her son, but that her son in fact did live. She first believed he was dead. Then she got the news that he was alive. That emotional ties pulling her from one extreme to the other was too much for her. So she willfully kissed her nefesh, willfully kissed the Ruach of Yahweh, and willfully gave it up to him, knowing that indeed her seed was alive to crush the seed of Hasatan. Remember, it is the seed of the woman that is supposed to crush the seed of Hasatan. And this is why she knew the importance of Isaac, the importance of her role. Now, the place she was laid was at Mamre. Now, Mamre means rebellious, but it also has 4 names. This one place has 4 different names because it has 4 different spiritual connotations. Mamre is rebellious, but it is not identified that Sarah was laid at Mamre. Another name for this word is Eshcol. And Eshcol is the same place as Mamre, but this has a spiritual connotation of dying for others' sins that were passed down. We know that the sins of our fathers are passed down from generation to generation. So some people die as a response to sins that are passed down to them. Kiryat Arba is another name for Mamre. But Kiryat Arba is a natural death of the soul that returns to Yahweh. And that's what she did. She is a natural soul that returned to Yahweh. But the fourth and final name of Mamre is Hebron. And Hebron is for, it means friend that is close to Yahweh, face to face. You know, when you get face to face to your wife or to your spouse, you're kissing them. And this is how she passed up her life, as Hebron, face to face as a friend of Yahweh with a kiss. She passed on in Shalom. Sarah's name means princess, in reference to a daughter of Yah. And there were several miracles that happened in the tent of Sarah daily. These were daily miracles that testified she was who she was, as a daughter of Yah, a prophetess. One of the miracles is that the Shabbat candle stayed on until the following Shabbat, when she relit a new Shabbat candle. That means the light in her tent never went out. When we burn our candles, it goes out the next day because it runs out. Not Sarah's candle. Her candle remained lit the entire week. And then she relit a new one on the following Shabbat. Then that candle, the old candle, went out. So the light never ended in the tent of Sarah. Another miracle that happened daily in Sarah's tent is that the dough she made, it continued to feed her family and all passing buyers and strangers. Daily, the dough continued to multiply as the dough did for Elijah. The dough never ended. It stayed. She always had plenty of bread in the tent to feed family and friends and travelers. So that was another miracle. It continually produced. Thirdly and finally, there was a righteous cloud attached above Sarah's tent. And this symbolizes where Yahweh dwelled. He was with Sarah. It's similar to a cloud that was over the tents of Abraham's two wives, Leah and Rebekah. This is how Jacob knew who to go with that night. When he came from the field, he didn't just go to any tent he wanted to. He didn't, because if that was the case, he probably went to Rachel's tent every night. But Yahweh told Jacob where to go to each night. If the cloud was over Leah's tent, that's where he had to go. If the cloud was over Rachel's tent, that was where he was supposed to sleep that night. So this is how it was with Sarah. The cloud was always over her tent every day. 3 miracles that testified the power and the righteousness of this woman. We know that Abraham purchased the burial spot for he and his wife from Het. These were white giants. You don't get all that in your regular reading of the Bible, but these were giants, white giants, and they knew the significance of this place because the first man and the first woman, Adam and mother Hawa, were in this cave. And this cave was made as a double cave for 2 couples to be in at once in one cave. So they knew the righteousness and the special Sadiq righteousness and the Kodeshness of this place. So Abraham purchased at a high cost for this burial ground, and we know that our patriarchs and our matriarchs are there. Now, we know that we know that Sarai did not want her son to have one of the daughters of the Canaanites. So Abraham had Eleazar, his servant, reach under his thigh. Now that's a very sensitive thing. Man to man, for another man to touch another man's stones. That's where the seed is. But Eleazar, his trustful servant, with his right hand reached under Abraham's thigh to his stones to swear an oath that he would get a wife of Isaac from the place that he was told to get her from the place of his fathers on the other side. A true Hebrew crosses over, so he had to get a woman. Yahweh is mindful of the seed from the very beginning, from the Bereshit. He is mindful of the seed because the seed is what he is going to come through to crush the serpent's head. All of the history of man is a battle, a spiritual warfare of light and darkness. Abraham did not take this lightly. So Eleazar goes, and in the narrative, we find that Eleazar's name is not even spoken in this narrative. That is because he is at this time being represented as Ruach HaKodesh. As such, his name is not even spoken in this narrative. Very important to note that he was guided by Ruach HaKodesh, so much so that his name is not even spoken. He is just considered the servant, though we already know from reading previously who this man is, and after this, that he is Eleazar. So he is the one that goes out, and we know the story how he gets Rebekah. She is the only soul in the land that mirrored the spirit and the soul of Sarah, and that was Rebekah. So Ruach HaKodesh led this man to this woman and that family, and he came back fruitful as he was sent out. Let's read from Isaiah 62 and 5. Isaiah 62 and 5. As a young man marries a virgin, so will your sons marry you. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so will you, mighty one, rejoice over you. So we see that this is love here. Yahweh loves, he is the bridegroom, and he loves his bride, and he's rejoicing over us. Now, in verse 4, before this verse, we're told that we're going to be given a new name, Hephzibah, and it means my delight is in her, and that we are going to be married in a renewed land, the land called Beulah. Africa is misnamed. One of the original names of the land of so-called Africa is Beulah land, land of the married people. Yahweh has always had a special relationship with this land. This is where he started the creation, and we are his delight. We are Hephzibah, and he created us from the land of Beulah, Beulah land, which is the land of the married people. A marriage is a covenant, and it is a covenant he had established between a man and a woman, because in the covenant relationship does he come from. He is the original covenant before there was a man. So Yahweh lifts up marriage, and he upholds marriage, because it's through marriage, that covenant, that he comes out to crush the head of the serpent. Yahweh has established from the Bereshit that he is going to build up a home to have the revelation that comes out of his hand. As such, Hasatan starts all of his attacks from the home. He starts from the man, and he whittles down to the woman, and then to the child. If he can't even get to the child, he'll go down to the pets, whatever he can, to try to erode the foundation of the home. The man must be strong in his home, because this is where the promise comes from, the promise of salvation. Now let's go to 1 John 3, verses 2 and 3. 1 John 3, 2 and 3. Beloved, now we are children of Elohim, and it has not yet been revealed what we will be. But we know that when he is revealed, we will be like him, because we will see him as he is. And everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure. So we see that those who are not of the bride gets grafted in. We must accept Yahweh, who is the way, the truth, and the light. And those grafted in becomes part of the whole house. We should be able to understand this, as we a lot of times have mixed families within a home under a man and a woman. A woman may have previous children, a husband may have previous children, and they all come together unified under the one name of the man. But Yahweh grafts those in who accepts his son together as the whole house of Yisrael. We're going to find that Sarah is the wife of promise, but indeed Abraham had 3 wives. We will talk about that. Leviticus 21 verses 9, 13, and 14. Weyakra verses 9, 13, and 14 of chapter 21. The daughter of any priest, if she profanes herself by playing the harlot, she profanes her father, she will be burned with fire. And he will take a wife in her virginity, a widow or a divorced woman or a defiled woman or a harlot. These he will not marry, but he will take a virgin of his own people as wife. So we see a lot of important parameters here for Yahweh, for a man of Yah, for a priest. We know that the end of the time will end for the wicked with fire. Why? Because those burned in fire are being burned for their wickedness in sexual relations. Okay, so it's fornication and having sexual relations in an improfane way outside of the covenant. Any woman who does this, having sexual relations outside of the covenant under her father's house, gets burned. This whole world was created by Yahweh. The earth is his and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. Anybody who is having relations that are unrighteous without being under the covenant are playing a harlot, and they will be burned. Also, he who is a man or a leader of the people of Yahweh is to have one wife, and not a wife who has been divorced or have other children. They're supposed to have one wife if you are a preacher or a priest of Yahweh. And the woman has to have been a virgin, a clean woman. A priest of Yahweh must have a virgin wife. So if you're a leader, if you're a preacher out there and you don't have a virgin wife, then when you married her, then you are out of bounds. In the history of the mankind, we find that cleansing throughout the Torah always comes in 2 parts. First by water, then by fire. Those things that cannot be cleansed by water gets cleansed by fire. The world was destroyed the first time by water. We see where it is now. The second time will be the last time it will be destroyed by fire. Yahweh does not, another thing we find out in Leviticus 21 verses 9, 13, and 14, he says that Yahweh will take a virgin of his own people. Yahweh does not believe in mixing. We're talking about him as the priest now. We're not talking about regular men who follow Yahweh who are grafted in. But Yahweh is mindful of the seed. He says this from the very beginning in Bereshit. He takes a bride who is a virgin from his own people. So we're not to set another man over us, another race, another religion, another ethnicity. There must be a Hebrew woman. This is what the book says. And if you read the book of Leviticus, the whole book is about being holy. It's about being Kodesh. The book of Leviticus is teaching us how to interact and relate with Yahweh and with man. 2 Corinthians 11 and 2. I am jealous for you with righteous jealousy, because I have betrothed you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Mashiach. This is what the ministry Yahweh gave me. Yahweh for Christians is all about. Shaul, whom you call Paul, who started many assemblies, said he is jealous because already they have been infiltrated and have been introduced with other religions. They have been mixing the name of Yahweh Shua. They have been accepting other husbands. And he said he is jealous over this. He betrothed the Besorah message, which you call the gospel. He betrothed the Besorah message to those who accepted Yahweh Shua with one husband. No mixing. The sin of man from the beginning has been mixing. Thou shalt not mix. Don't bring anything else. The word of Yahweh is to be unleavened. It is Yahweh, Yahweh Shua, Ruach HaKodesh. There's no room for the names that you find from paganism. No room. 1 Corinthians 7:34. There is a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares about the things of Yahweh, that she may be Kodesh, both in body and in spirit. But she who is married cares about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. So we see that when a husband is betrothed to a young virgin, it is just like being married. They have not consummated it yet, but all the duties and the rights and the spirit and the energy are the same as a husband and wife who has been married for 20 years. Once the groom and the young virgin have agreed and committed themselves to one another, though they have not consummated it, they are looked at as being married. No one can enter into that relationship. And at that time, while the groom is away preparing the ketubah of his father's house, the bride is in her own father's house with her whole focus on her groom. Her whole preparation, her whole daily life, and her whole focus is on the groom, who will come at a time that she does not know. So she must always be ready. This is some of what Matthew 25 is about the virgins, the 10 virgins, but your leaders are not even really getting it all correct, I'll humbly say so. But we find about in Matthew 25, these 10 virgins, we know that the 5 wise ones hear and obey. The other 5, they heard, but they did not obey. They did not have their lamps trimmed and ready to go throughout the duration of the wait. Don't know how long he's going to be, but they were not ready. What they had to do, go out to those who buy and sell. What is the mark of the beast all about in these latter days? It's about buying and selling. They had to go back out into the world to buy and sell to get more oil. Who teaches this but your big brothers? Go out there to your big brothers and get the oil. But in the meantime, the groom came, and in went the 5 wise virgins to the marriage feast. Now here's the part that your leaders are not sharing. Either they know it or they don't know it. But remember, those 5 virgins are not the bride. They are the guests, wedding guests. They are coming in with their part of the marriage. They're important. They are saved. The door gets closed behind them, but they are not the bride. So those who say they are of those virgins, the wise virgins, that's good. You come into the feast, you're part of the marriage, but you're not the bride. And that is Yisrael. That is the house of Israel. That's not Yehuda. That is Yisrael. That is Ephraim, the 10 lost tribes that are scattered throughout the whole world. That's what those 5 virgins represent. That's why they are not the bride. They are wedding guests. Now we see that the groom is delayed in his coming, but he really is not delayed. Remember, we talked about the 7 so-called churches, how at the end that Samaritans, they had a 10-day extra tribulation. There was 10 days of tribulation that continued, and that time was getting out the last bit of Laban. Yahweh Shua goes to Yehuda first in the land of Edom. From there, he slays the 200 million man army. He is now defiled. He has his robes bloody, but he is on his way, and that happens at Mount Sinai, the original covenant. From Mount Sinai, Hamashiach comes with Yehuda and his companions, which are the Rechabites. And during that time, that's 10 to 15 days, when Israel is waiting at Zion. So it's during that time that the 5 foolish virgins ran out of oil. The wise ones continued to be ready and continued to have oil, which is Ruach HaKodesh, waiting for the groom, who apparently is delaying his coming. He's not delaying. He's still taking care of business. He comes at the appointed time. This is another reason why we must know about the feast days and keep the feast days. Matthew 7:26. For everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. We know that the Bereshit, Yahweh is building his house. He tells us in the first word of the Torah, Bereshit. Bereshit Bara. So there's Yahweh building his house, establishing his house on his son, who is the rock, a solid, sure foundation. Those who believe in him stand on that rock. Those who do not are stumbled on by it. They are crushed. Those who believe in him keep the Torah. This includes the Shabbat and all of the Kodesh Moedim. The 7 Moedim are pattern times of meeting Yahweh. The foundation of all the Moedim is the Shabbat, which is every week, at least once a week. So we find also that the bride accepts the groom freely. She is not forced to. She is offered, and like Rebecca was offered to accept Isaac, and she accepted. She never met Isaac, but she accepted the offer to go with the Ruach HaKodesh, which Eleazar represents at that time, and she goes with Eleazar and accepted the groom, having never met him. We today accept Yahweh HaMashiach, who is the groom, and we have never met him. We are accepting him right now in faith and not by sight. Now, so Eliar, he procures Rebecca, and likewise, and he brings her to Isaac. Now let's look at this in some more detail here. We know that the Feast of Trumpets, okay, the Feast of Trumpets is the groom. That's when the groom, which is Yahweh, meets with Yehuda and his companions. That happens at night at on Mount Sinai, okay? He meets up with them. They were first hiding in what I call the land of Lot, but down in Edom, hiding down there. He brings them up, and they meet at Sinai, and that is the marriage with Yehuda. So there is a marriage with Yehuda and the Rechabites, okay? And that happens on the Feast of Trumpets at night. There's a slaughter of the 200 million man army. Then we have the Day of Atonement. Day of Atonement is Yahweh Shua being presented as Messiah, as a king now. Not as the bride, but as a king who has to reign on earth, okay? And from there, he is meeting with Yisrael. That's us, who are spread throughout the whole earth, and our companions. Our companions are those who have accepted the name of Yahweh Shua, and even though they may not be Hebrew, they accepted it based on our testimony. They are our companions, and he meets with us on Zion. That happens at the Day of Atonement. There's a 10-day delay, and then you have tabernacles. And then we have our marriage with him. We tabernacle with Yahweh Shua. There's a famine on the land for the word of Yahweh. There's going to be a whole week with no word going out on the earth for the first time ever. And we are tabernacling with Yahweh Shua. That is our marriage. That's the second marriage. On the last great day is when the whole world comes against us and Yahweh destroys them all. And then we have a millennial kingdom. At the millennial kingdom, so you have Armageddon after the last great day. At the millennial kingdom, you have Hasatan is being brought out of his chamber after his 1,000-year imprisonment, and he deceives the whole world for the final time, those outside of the covenant. Okay? From that point, we have the final destruction of sin, death, Hades, and the grave. Then there's a third marriage, Yahweh with the whole created creation, with the whole purified creation. So that's 3 marriages. And that is not being taught by your leaders. But there are 3 marriages. The first one with Yehuda, the second one with Yisrael, and the first one is with Yahweh Shua, with Yehuda. The second one is the Messiah with Israel, and that's really Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, Ruach HaKodesh is what brings us to him. And then the final one is Yahweh with the whole world. He is always meant to be tabernacle with us. That was his plan before the beginning. Ephesians 5:25-27. I hope you let that sink in what I just shared with you, because you're not hearing that anywhere else, and you cannot just Google that. You cannot be a thumb scholar to get this wisdom that is being given to you. Ephesians 5:25-27. Husbands, love your wives, just as Hamashiach also loved the assembly and gave himself for her, that he might set apart and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious assembly, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be Kodesh and without blemish. This coming from a man apparently who was never married or married, but his wife died and he didn't have any children. He is saying that we are to love our wives. Yahweh Shua, we know how much he loved us because he showed it on the tree. He cannot give any more than what he gave. You cannot say you love someone and don't show it. We keep the commandments because we love him. It shows how we love him. We don't keep commandments and the feast days and all that to get saved. We keep it because we love him. You cannot say you love your wife and then you don't do anything for her. You do things for her because you love her. We are to love Yahweh Shua, do his commandments, and receive his cleansing. It's a 2-part process. You got the blood, and then you got the water. You had the dam, and you had the mayim. Blood and water. It's a 2-part process. We are forgiven by the blood, and we're cleansed by the water. Remember, out of his side came dam wa mayim. Abraham, his age is given in 3 sections also. He died at 175. When he was 70, he had the youthful obedience and innocence as a 5-year-old. When he was 100, he still looked just as young as anyone 75 years old. He died healthy and strong. And he had 3 wives. Sarah, who was the wife of promise for the Hebrews. He had Hagar, who we know the Ishmaelites and the Arabs came from. And he had Keturah, who populated Africa. Now, you have other sites who will say Medes, the Persians, the Iranians. All that's part of Africa also. But from my research and where Ruach HaKodesh has led me, Hagar, Keturah's kids populated all of Sub-Saharan Africa, so-called Sub-Saharan Africa. So we see the Abraham seed with these 3 wives populated the whole world. And all those outside of that are mankind. In the Haftarah, we see that Dawid is old. Now, the thing about sharing these Torah portions, and we're talking about Torah portions here now, they also have an Old Testament corollary to the Torah portions. And this one is in 1 Kings 1, verse 1-31. And here we see that Dawid is old. He has given a young virgin to try to bring him back to health. But Adoniah, his name means my master is Yah. Okay? And he is the son of Haggith. And he exalts himself. So we find that Dawid does not rebuke him initially, and it parallels to what is the true reign and the false reign. We're going to have 2 parallel kingdoms going on here. But let's first go to Galatians 4:22-31. I'm going to start with Galatians 4:22-31. It is written that Abraham had 2 sons, the one by a bondwoman and the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh, and he of the free woman through promise. which things are symbolic. For there are the two covenants. The one from Mount Sinai, which gives birth to bondage, which is Hagar, for this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all, because it is written, Rejoice, O barren, you who do not bear. Break forth and shout, you who are not in labor, because the desolate has many more children than she who has a husband. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are children of promise. But as he who was born according to the flesh then persecuted him who was born according to Ruach, even so it is now. Nevertheless, what does the Torah say? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, because the son of the bondwoman will not be heir with the son of the free woman. So then, brothers, we are not children of the bondwoman, but children of the free. Now, so bound was the leadership of Israel. When Yahweh healed a man who was bound for 38 years, they complained about him carrying his bed on the Sabbath. They didn't praise Yahweh for healing the man. They were bound by the law and not by the spirit of the law, not by the rule of the law. We live today as Israel under the spirit of the law. That's why Yahweh made it that we can't even keep the letter of the law. We're not in the Kodesh land. We do not have the animal sacrifices. We cannot even wear clothing that's not mixed. We cannot eat righteous food. We cannot even keep the sacred days as they ought to be kept. But we do all these things with promise and in faith, not to the letter of the law, because we can't. This is what Shaul is talking about, that we are children of the promise. Now, Abishag, who was a Shulamite, was given to Dawid. She represents the 144,000. Hagar actually has seemingly a good name. It means festive. Okay? It means festive. But she represents Rome's parallel religion and its false festivities, its false holy days. And we know that these world's holy days leavened Yahweh and his people, and they mixed the two religions, and it became a monster, a beast religion that Revelation 14 is talking about. Yahweh's people are undefiled. Revelation 14:4, they're not defiled, and they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. We're not to be defiled while mixing the religion of the Torah with the religion of the world. We worship on Shabbat, not Sunday. We keep the 7 Kodesh Moedim. We do not keep Thanksgiving, Easter, and Christmas, and 4th of July, and all those other things. Now, we see that Adonai set himself up as king, and he had a following. Dawid let that go on for a while, so you had at the same time a false system and you had a righteous system. And of course, Dawid rectified that, and we had one system set up. That's what's happening now. We have two systems. You have Yahweh's system, you have the world system going on right now. Yahweh is going to have to reveal himself like Dawid did and set up the right system. And then we will know who he loves. Now, another thing about this false system, we find that Adonijah was not even punished. He was put in his place, but he was not killed. What got him finally destroyed was when he sought after the young virgin girl that was given to Dawid. That is what did him in. This is showing how even after everything is settled and everything is at peace in the new kingdom, after the 1,000 years are up, those who did not change in the heart are still evil. They still want the access of the pure ones through the law. They still have their own self-righteousness. That is why after millennium, after millennial kingdom, you're still going to see a final judgment. Now let's read Revelation 21 verses 1 and 2. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. So What are these symbolisms? What are these symbolic of? The sun is representing Yahweh Shua. Remember, he is the Son of righteousness. He comes in on a cloud that comes out of the sun from the east. This is a special cloud because if you studied or if you followed the study and I've been teaching here, you know that the clouds go from west to east. So this cloud is coming from the opposite way. It's coming from the rising of the sun. When it's doing that, it's coming to get those grafted in. It's coming to get the house of Israel. We need to be ready. Now, the moon. How do we get ready? The moon, the word for moon is moed. It's the same word for month. It is the appointed times. Yahweh has given us 7 appointed times. And 8 to be exact, because every week we have a Shabbat. So it's 8 appointed times. So those who are ready for the Son of Righteousness, who's going to come from the east, are keeping the Moedim. They're keeping the Kodesh days, all 7 of them, plus the Sabbath. And that's how they are ready for Yahweh Shua when he comes. And they are represented by the 12 stars. So the sun that comes from the east with the moon under his feet is coming for the 12 stars, the house of Israel. So this system, we saw that with David, with Solomon, who was the chosen, that was the proper system. Adoniah was the false system. David had to uncover who was the right system to choose. Yahweh Shua, who's going to come as the Messiah, HaMashiach, David is going to be the Messiah on earth, during the Millennial Kingdom. And he is going to bring to light who the true system is, which is his people and which is not. Revelations 17, 3, 4, and 11. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. Now, without that bowl, you don't know what's inside that bowl, but on the outside, she looks beautiful, righteous, and blessed. Going by the appearance, but this is the idolatrous bride trying to access the groom through harlotry. She has the face of righteousness, but a heart of wickedness. So the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th and is of the 7th and is going to perdition. This, you're going to have to go back. You can seek me out for the transcripts on Here is Wisdom. And then part 2, Here is the Mind of Wisdom. Contact me to get the transcripts from the broadcast on WOLB 1010 AM. I give it more detail about who these people are. And it's going to surprise you that this is Israel. The harlot who sits on the beastly system is Lavan Israel. Remember, she comes out of this, the system comes out of the sea. The sea is the bronze bowl behind the altar before the holy place. And the sea is Israel mixed with false religions. You're not getting that anywhere else. Tune in. I'm showing you things. I got the scriptures. I can give you the transcripts. Okay. So the beast is Lavan Israel. Every last religion on earth points the fingers at other religions for being in apostasy. When what it really is that any religion that is Lavan, that is mixed outside of the name of Yahweh, Yahweh Shua, and Ruach HaKodesh is apostasy. This ministry only teaches Yahweh, Yahweh Shua, Ruach HaKodesh. Unleavened, this is a true ministry, fruitful in the name of Yahweh Shua. So all these false teachers teaching about false teaching is a mockery and is laughable if it was not so serious. How can somebody teaching and preaching in the names of pagan and idolatry say someone else is false when you're using names applied to the Most High that do not belong to him? All the denominations who are mixed are false. You have seven in the Revelations talks about the 7 mountains. Those are 7 governments, 7 leaders. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism. And they all are in the 7 mountains of the earth, the 7 continents of the earth. So you got 7 religions, 7 continents of the earth. All are idolatrous. All are abomination. All of them are wicked, putrid, abomination, and idolatry. And they all are profane in their wicked words, their lavened words, which are blasphemous. Ishmael is Islamic, and his 12 sons are offshoots of the east. We know we have an affinity with Egypt, who were born the Canaanites and the Anakim, the giants. We have an affinity with them, have always had one, and we have it to this day with the Egyptians. We have Keturah, who in her offshoots, she has 6 sons. Abraham sent them down south. Esau, who mixed with Ishmael, and he mixed with the Canaanites. So he's been mixed north and south, east and west. He has mixed his seed all over the place. He already had even in himself, he had an aberrant seed within himself. So he mixes aberrant seed with Ishmael and with the Canaanites. And you have Esau, who went north, south, east, and west. So then you had Jacob, who was Eberite. He had 12 sons, and his 12 sons went down south. Yusuf, who our brother who was sold to slavery in Egypt, out of him came Christianity. Remember, Yusuf had 2 sons, and his wife was from Mizraim, and they went west, north, and east. West, north, and east. So the wives that came within the tribe of Israel, you have Hagar, Keturah, and Asenath. Okay? And they all came from Mizraim. Traditionally, Hebrew genealogy is through the matrilineal. So that means we have matrilineal mixing of our seed. But this Yahweh allowed to get Ephraim, which is the northern tribes, which comes from Yusuf. This is how Yahweh got us throughout the whole earth. Otherwise, we would not have spread throughout the whole earth. He allowed slavery and all the other things he allowed to get us to spread and salt the earth. But then he is going to bring us back together with the 2 sticks, bring us back together, Yahweh Shua, the X-Man. But we see that Sarah begot Yitzhak. And the Genesis 3:15 narrative, Yahweh speaking to Satan says that the woman's seed will crush his seed, not Adam's seed, not even Abraham's seed. It is the woman's seed. And the word he used was enmity. Enmity is different than regular hate. The word for hate in Hebrew is same. But this word enmity is Iba. And Iba is a personal hatred. It's a personal hatred into the genes. So Satan has a genetic hatred against Yahweh's chosen seed. And this chosen seed comes from Sarai. And that is a hard one to follow because it's hard to follow that seed. The whole Torah is Yahweh acting and Satan reacting. Yahweh acting, Satan reacting. Always trying to keep up with Yahweh and what he is doing. But no one understands the mind of Yahweh. The whole Torah is the greatest love story ever told. Please get to know your word. Know the word of Yah. Getting close to wrapping this up. Revelations 1:20. The mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands. The 7 stars are the 7 Malachim of the Sheba HaKalim, and the 7 lampstands which you saw are the Sheba HaKalim. I started out last year or early in this year talking about the so-called 7 churches. He established what he had to know for the whole world through his seed. He said, I came only for the lost house of Israel. And that is these 7 assemblies. From these 7 assemblies, each one has its own malach assigned to it. We all have, as a collective, 7 different collectives, a special malach, so-called angel, assigned to us. Now we know that in 70 AD, the temple was sacked, burned. All of the Hebrews were put out of the land by the Romans. And we know that Esau, who Rome set up to be a head in the first place, the scribes and Pharisees were all Edomites, and people not understanding that either. They were hired by the Romans to run Israel, and they were complicit with keeping Israel down. But anyway, they go up to Babylon. All of Israel is cleaned out after the temple has been burned. Now we have confusion of face. We all spread out, and we know what happens from there. Eventually, 400 years later, we get the birth of Catholicism and all the false religions. We mix to survive. A lot of us mix for that. But the true hid down in south in the land of Edom. Eventually, we have the holy wars, we have the dark ages, and we have slavery, and we're spread throughout the whole world. This all starts from us denying Yahweh Shua. That's why the book of Hebrews was written about 5 years before the destruction of the temple. It was written specifically for the Iberite to be ready, because their whole temple system was about to be demolished. They had to receive this message written by Peter, by the way, Selah. Peter, whose Hebrew name is Selah, written by him, the book of Hebrews, the book of Iberite, for us to be ready, because the temple was going to be burned down. It was end up being burned down 5 years later. We had to have that Torah in our hearts, and our circumcised hearts, to be prepared what was going to happen next. And what happened next was like the destruction of the world. When that temple burned down, that was like the destruction of the world. So we see that we are scattered about, and that's going to bring us to my final scripture in this segment, Matthew 13:11. It has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. These things that I'm sharing now comes from years, I've got about 40 years in this, of studying, fasting, and praying, and sincere search for the word of Yahweh. Understanding original words to get an understanding of real truth. You cannot know this word in English. You cannot know it. You cannot know it just reading the King James Bible. You don't have to read Hebrew, because that is corrupted also. But get to know the original words so you can understand the original truth that Yahweh has given to us. We are commanded to know what I'm sharing here. You are commanded to know the mysteries of the kingdom. You're commanded to know there are 3 brides, 3 marriages, there's 3 comings, 3 appearings. You're commanded to know this. You're commanded to know how this thing's supposed to work. And reading the Bible, and what I'm hearing even from my own Hebrew preachers, we do not know it. So I humbly say, continue to follow me in these Torah portions and in the ministries that I have and in my books, and I'm working on the 3rd one now, to reveal the mysteries of the kingdom as Yahweh is laying out for us here in these last days. So until next week, Yehonatan Dawid with you here. Shalom Alakim. Peace be unto you.